to our Peace Momo colleague,
今30カ国がこの、
by Ayu Moon. Thank you for being us today and for becoming our moderator for Korea, and to the Peace Solidarity for Participatory Democracy under the care of Soyoung. Thank you so much. And for Gangjung Peace Movement led by Kaya. Thank you for your contribution. So without further ado, let us, and to keep the wave from flowing, we'll pass the peace wave to Gensokyu and the Japan Peace Committee, who are now live at Ginza, downtown Tokyo. So over to you, Yayon, the Assistant Secretary General of Gensokyu, and Jun Chisaka, the Secretary General of the Japan Peace Committee. And hello to all of you there in Ginza and Tokyo. So the peace wave is now with you, Yayoi, and the team of Japan Peace Committee. Hello, Yayoi.
バイデン大統領は、ウクライナへのロシアの侵略に対して、主義対先制のために、世界を先制という分断を行って、ロシアへの封じ込め、このように NATO を利用をしているからです。先日、ロシアのプーチン大統領は、ベラルーシにこともあろうに戦術核を配備いたしました。でこれは1970年に発行した核不拡散条約に明確に違反する絶対にしてはない行為で、それに対してこの NATO はドイツを中心に史上最大規模の軍事演習で対抗しました。このように軍事対軍、核対核のエスカレーション、これは極めて危険ではないでしょうか。そうした中で問われているのは、戦争放棄、軍隊を持たない、憲法9条を持つこの日本の役割です。岸田首相は昨年6月に開かれた核兵器禁止条約第1回締約国会をボイコットして、この NATO の首脳会議に参加して、5年間で43兆円も注ぐ大軍拡を約束しました。その結果が今度の通常国会で起こりましたね。5年間でこの43兆を使う軍需産業を支援する。こういうアメリカバイデン大統領に3回も言われて、それを実行して、4月11日からは第2回の NATO の首脳会談に出かけていくという報道もされています。しかも皆さん、NATO のようなアメリカを中心とするこの軍事同盟の事務所を日本に起こす。これは皆さん、被爆国、憲法9条を持つ日本がやっていいことでしょうか。とってもありません。まずもって、NATO は核軍事同盟です。ドイツ、イタリア、トルコなどにアメリカの戦術核が配備され、いざという時にはアメリカの戦術核を積んで核攻撃をする。これが NATO の軍事同盟です。皆さん、最近物騒な話がありました。ロイター通信で維新の会の馬場幹事長が日本も核共有を検討、議論しなきゃいけない。皆さん、自衛隊の戦闘機がアメリカの戦術核を積んでどこを攻撃するんでしょうか。そんなことをやれば相手から核による報復を受けるじゃありませんか。日本は全滅です。そんな物騒な話をこともあろうに維新の会の幹事長が行う。これこそ軍事対軍事、核対核をこの北東アジアに持ち込んで、再び戦争を巻き込もう。こんな道は絶対許してはなりません。今私たちは、より安全な道、 確実な道は日本が核兵器禁止条約に参加することです。憲法9条を生かして、軍備拡大ではなくて、軍縮、紛争の平和的解決に全力を注ぐことではないでしょうか。皆さん、ヨーロッパの平和運動も今日、ノーナト、軍備拡大反対、その行動を起こしております。私たちはその行動に連帯して、皆さんと一緒にですね、今の平和への危機、これを打開する、軍事ではなくて軍事、核兵器を使用を許さない、核兵器全面禁止、一刻も早く日本政府に核兵器禁止条約への参加を、この声をご一緒に挙げようではありませんか。ありがとうございました。有楽町ご通行中の皆さん、こんにちは。私たちは、ノーベル平和賞を受賞した、国際平和ムードが呼びかけております。ノーナト24時間平和の波行動に取り組んでいます。この取り組みは、アイルランドからウクライナまで地球を西回りにつなぎ、オンラインでつないでおります。リレートークを続けます。日本平和委員会事務局長の、久坂淳さんです。よろしくお願いします。
マリオン前ご通行中の皆さん、こんにちは。私たちは今紹介がありましたように、ノーナト地球をめぐる平和の波行動に参加して、今ここでお訴えをさせていただいています。この取り組みは7月11、12日にリトアニアで開かれる NATO というアメリカとヨーロッパ諸国の軍事同盟の首脳会議を前にして、軍事同盟ではなくて、平和と協力を、そして核軍縮を、その声を世界に広げようと、ノーベル平和賞を受賞した国際平和ビューローの皆さんなどが呼びかけて、今24時間、世界中をつないで繰り広げられている行動です。オンラインで世界にも発信されて、そして最後は今侵略戦争で本当にひどい目に遭っているウクライナから反戦平和の声を世界に届ける、そういう行動です。ぜひ皆さんもご参加していただければと思います。皆さん、この NATO という軍事同盟の首脳会議、日本にとっても一言ではありません。この首脳会議に報道もされておりますように、岸田首相が昨年に続いて今年も参加しようとしているんですね。そしてそこでヨーロッパのこの強大な軍事同盟と日米軍事同盟を一体化していこうじゃないか。そして NATO の加盟国が目指している軍事費を国内総生産の 2% にする。日本で言えば軍事費を倍増させる。その目標を日本も掲げて、昨年の12月、岸田政権が勝手に決めた5年間で軍事費を43兆円も支出する。軍事費の額を倍増させて、世界第3位の軍事大国になる。このことを改めて、NATO 首脳会議の前で、岸田首相が約束をして推し進めようという、そういうとんでもないことをしようとしているんです。こんなことは黙っているわけにはいかないと思います。しかし皆さん、ロシアがウクライナで行っているあまりにも残虐な侵略戦争、ああいう状況を日々私たち目にして、やっぱり軍事同盟強化も必要じゃないか、そういうふうに思われる方もおられるかもしれません。私たちもロシアのウクライナ侵略は実に反対です。ですから、毎月2回 私たちロシア大使館の前に行って、ロシアは侵略を直ちにやめろ、即時撤退をという声を上げ続けております。しかし皆さん、NATO や日米の軍事同盟を強化して、この戦争を終わらせることができるのか、平和を実現することができるのか、そのことが問題ではないでしょうか。そもそも、このロシアがウクライナに侵略したこの口実というのが NATO の統合拡大というものでしたよね。NATO の加盟国が30カ国を超えてロシアに近づいてくる。ウクライナがそれに入ったのはこういう口実でこの侵略戦争を始めました。軍事と軍事、核兵器と核兵器が対立し合う、そういう緊張状況が侵略戦争の口実となる、そのことを示しているのではないでしょうか。しかも、今ロシアのは NATO が仕掛けた戦争だ、こう言って今の戦争を続けようとしております。NATO 対ロシアという軍事と軍事の対決の構図に持ち込んでいけば、ロシアがますます戦争を続ける口実が続いてしまう。この戦争を終わらせるためには、軍事同盟と軍事同盟の対決という枠組みを超えて、国連憲章を守れ、侵略戦争をやめろという一点で、どんな立場の国々も力を合わせて、ロシアを包囲していく、そういうことで、平和的にこの問題を解決していく道を作っていく、そのことが大事ではないでしょうか。アジアではどうでしょう。NATO と日米軍事同盟が一体となって中国を軍事的に包囲していこう。そんなことをしたら、このアジアでもますます軍事的な緊張が高まり、軍拡競争が激しくなり、核戦争の危険が高まっていく、そういうふうになるのは明らかではないでしょうか。今、アメリカはオーストラリアに核兵器も積む戦略爆撃機を展開をし、朝鮮半島にも展開をし、そして今度は核兵器を積んだ戦略原子力潜水艦を韓国の周辺に展開をし、さらに日本政府との間でも核戦力をこの周辺で可視化していこうじゃないか、見えるようにしていこうじゃないかという合意を作って、それを進める。皆さん、こういうアメリカの核の威嚇と、日本が今進めていくような軍拡で、この周辺国を威嚇する、そんなことを進めていったら、本当に緊張が高まり、核戦争の危険が高まっていく、こういうことになります。皆さん、戦争の危険を高める軍事同盟強化反対、NATO と日米軍事同盟の一体化反対、この声を上げましょう。日本にいると、なんだか軍事同盟に入って生きていくのが当たり前だ。そういうふうに思いがちです。しかし皆さん、世界に目を向けてみたら、軍事同盟に入っている国なんていうのは、本当に世界の少数なんですよ。世界では、世界の人口の 82% が軍事同盟にもう入っていないんです。大国に支配され、大国の軍事的な思惑に振り回される、そういう軍事同盟から抜け出して、そうして一つ一つの国が自主的な立場で、そして核と核、軍事の対決という物騒な世界を変えていこうと、そういう努力をしているのが今の世界なんです。例えば核兵器禁止条約ですよね。今や92カ国が署名をして、68カ国が批准をして、どんどん世界に今広がって、そうして核兵器禁止条約に参加した国々が、核保有国や軍事同盟で その核の傘の下にある国々を包囲して追い詰めていこうという、皆さん、その先頭に立っているのが、軍事力なんか本当に少ない非同盟国、中立国の皆さんなんです。世界の流れはそういう流れです。アジアでもそうですよね。東南アジア諸国連合、ASEAN という国々は、軍事同盟じゃない、大国の思惑に左右されないで、この地域のすべての国々を一つのテーブルにつかせて、そうして話し合いでさまざまな問題を解決しようという包摂的な平和の枠組みを作るために一生懸命努力しています。こうしてその中でアジアでは国と国との軍事衝突はポンポンとなくなっている、そういう状況が作られています。皆さん、憲法9条を持つ日本が進むべき道はそういう道じゃないでしょうか。核兵器禁止条約に参加をして、周りの国々も核兵器禁止条約に参加しようと呼びかける。そして軍事同盟や軍拡の競争ではなくって、軍事同盟をなくして、すべての国々が話し合いでさまざまな問題を解決していく、そういうアジアを作っていく、そのためにこそ力を尽くすべきではないでしょうか。ヨーロッパの仲間の皆さん、世界の仲間の皆さんと一緒になって、そういう核兵器のない平和な世界とアジアを作るために頑張りたいと思います。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
有楽町マリオン前ご通行中の皆さん、こんにちは。私たちはノーベル平和賞も受賞した国際平和ビューローの呼びかけによる7月11日、12日とリトアニアで開催される北大西洋条約機構の首脳会議、NATO の首脳会議に開催する世界をオンラインでつなぐ平和の波行動に連載し、本日この場所で宣伝をさせていただいております。岸田首相は昨年この NATO の首脳会議に参加し、日本の軍事費を倍増させると宣言してきました。そして昨年12月には、その約束を果たすこと、約束通りに、5年間で43兆円もの、大軍拡、そして、日本の専守防衛をかなぐり捨てる、敵基地攻撃能力の保有、そしてこの大軍拡を実現させるための、国民への大増税を、国会にも諮らず、閣議決定をしました。こうした核対核、軍事対軍事の対応を、続ければ、それはエスカレートし、広島、長崎を繰り返しかねない結果につながると思います。日本は、唯一の戦争被爆国であり、第二次世界大戦の反省をもとに作られた憲法9条に基づいた平和外交の実現と、核兵器禁止条約への、直ちに署名批准することが今世界で求められている役割だと思います。今回この、宣伝で日本の憲法9条に基づく平和外交と核兵器禁止条約への参加を求めたいと思います。リレートークを続けます。続きまして、神奈川県平和委員会実局長の須原さんです。よろしくお願いします。こんにちは。久しぶりに50年ぶりですかね。人の前っていうのは、来ました。就職してすぐの時に彼女とデートする初めての場所だったような気がします。おのぼりさんです。今日、世界中で取り組まれているこの平和の波行動。世界中で取り組まれているんだから、神奈川でもと思って取り組もうとしたんですけど、ちょっと独自に行うことができませんでしたので、こちらに参りました。よろしくお願いします。平和の波で訴えるのは、核兵器や戦争をなくすには、軍事同盟を解体することだと それを訴えるためと思っています。その半世紀の歴史は、東南アジアの軍事同盟やソ連を中心とした軍事同盟など、多くの軍事同盟を開拓させてきました。しかし、今、ロシアによる核威嚇や戦争によって、NATO や軍事同盟、米韓軍事同盟、の強化を引き起こしています。神奈川では安保3文書改定を引き金に、日米軍事同盟を強化し、台湾有事、南西諸島に向けて、横浜ノースドックから病院や兵器を常に送り出せるよう、米軍本制上陸艇部隊が設置。以前からノースドックは上陸艇や音響測定艦や潜水艦母艦が停泊し、修理などを、軽い修理ですね、行って横須賀米軍港の補完的役割を負ってきました。横浜港の経済戦争の出撃局下で一気に国際親善の港から軍港の顔になってしまいました。横須賀米軍港は世界で唯一の米原子力空母の国外母港です。どこにも他の国にはありません。来年の後半には、機能化したジョージ・ワシントンが配備されます。空母には福島第一原発規模の原発が2つもあります。万が一、原発に起きた際には、横須賀関東各県と静岡や山梨や長野の一部にも被害は、また安保3文書改定により日米のミサイル防衛システムの統合が進んでいます。配備された南西諸島の自衛隊のミサイルも相模原の米軍ミサイル防衛司令部で攻撃目標が決められます。神奈川の住民は米軍基地を撤去し、地域の経済発展や住民の暮らしが豊かになるようなまちづくりを願っています。しかし、米軍基地は強化され、長期化し、母国を離れた米兵の多くは、ホームシックやストレスがたまり、事故や事件を起こしやすく、住民の被害が続いています。昨年の7月9日の事件ですが、上半身裸でパンツ1枚の米兵が逗子海岸で酔っ払って多くの人に暴行し、怪我をさせ、逃亡し、捕まりました。1年経っても刑事裁判が始まろうとしていません。米兵犯罪に司法も腰が引けているようです。昨年の9月には、逗子市議会は全会一致で法規粛正、処罰、全面保障を求める決議を採択しています。業を煮やした被害者5人いるんですけど、そのうちの4人が集団で民事訴訟を起こしました。米兵犯罪と昨年亡くなった私の友人、山崎正則さんを思い出します。また、犯罪者を追って米国まで行き、 裁判で勝利したゲーンさん。2人は米国の植民地同様の日米地位協定の見直しを求めていました。オーストラリア人のジェーンさんが日米地位協定の見直しをされるのは、日本人としてとても恥ずかしいと思います。日米軍事同盟ではなく、平和外交で日本を守りましょう。以上です。
有楽町ご通行中の皆さん、こんにちは。実はこのマリオン前をお借りしまして、ノーベル平和賞も受賞したことがあります。国際平和ブーロの呼びかけで、7月11日、12日とリトアニアで開催されます、NATO 首脳国会議に反対する、平和の波行動を取り組んでいます。この会議には、日本の首相であります、岸田首相も参加予定になっています。そして、現在日本にもこの、NATO の連絡事務所を置く、予定がされています。私たちは、こうした、軍事同盟の道を進むのではなく、唯一の戦争被爆国である、そして広島、長崎を経験した日本でこそ、核兵器禁止条約や憲法9条に基づいた平和外交の実現を、してほしいということで、今回こちらで、平和の波行動に取り組んでおります。リレー投稿で最後になります。日本平和委員会の若林さんです。よろしくお願いします。
ご通行中の皆さん、こんにちは。私からは、岸田政権の進める大軍拡と、そのための大増税反対の思いを述べたいと思います。岸田首相は、7月、リトアニアで開かれるアメリカ主導の NATO 首脳会議に参加しようとしています。この NATO はアメリカとともに他国を攻撃する敵基地攻撃能力を増強し、NATO 諸国の軍隊との軍事演習を激化させています。日本に NATO の連絡事務所を置くような計画もあり、日米軍事同盟も NATO もアメリカの核戦力と一体となった軍事同盟です。それを一体化することで、ロシアや中国などに対して軍事的保護を強めようと、こういう大きな流れが起きています。この中で岸田政権の進める敵基地攻撃能力には、莫大な税を政府は惜しげもなく使っています。戦争のリスクを高めるだけの軍事費です。しかし、岸田政権は私たちの生活、賃金上げろ、社会保障拡充しろ、払えないような高すぎる額を下げろ、消費税下げろ、こういう要求には財源がないって言います。戦争準備ばっかりで生活を守ろうとしない政治家には国会から退場してもらおうではありませんか。日米軍事同盟と NATO が一体となって中国への軍事包囲網を強めることが日本周辺での軍拡競争と緊張を深めているのではないでしょうか。岸田政権の大軍拡、そしてそのための大増税、5年間で43兆円規模の税金を使うことに反対します。これで発言をします。
Arigatou gozaimasu to the Gensokyu and Japan Peace Committee. Thank you so much for the important movement that you are doing right now. We really appreciate it. So to those who are watching us live, if you are in Japan or you are nearby in Tokyo, particularly in Ginza, downtown Tokyo. So if you are nearby there, please free to join the Japan Peace Committee and the Gensokyu on their peace protest that they're doing at the moment. So they will also have like a signature campaign. So please free to sign up and join their committee there. So we will move now to our next presenter for Japan. We will have Ms. Naoko Okamoto. Right, I think Naoko is here.
Yes, thank you for your introduction. Let me share the
Thank
screen.
you. All right. Okay, let me just do our tech support. Jello, kindly highlight, spotlight na ako. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll now pass our peace wave to Naako. Naako, the wave is yours.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Naoko Okimoto from Hiroshima, Japan. Today, I'd like to introduce you a slideshow of Barefoot Gen by Mr. Keiji Nakazawa, who was actually exposed to the Hiroshima atomic bombing and the author of this famous comic book. This was arranged for a Japanese traditional kamishibai style of storytelling. I will read chapter 3 of the 5 chapters, depicting the scenes immediately after the bombing. This slideshow data is courtesy of NPO Barefoot Game Promotion Group based in Kanazawa, Japan. Please be warned that this presentation might contain some shocking images. Now get started. Barefoot Gen by Keiji Nakazawa. My name is Gen. Gen for Genki, full of pep and energy. No matter how hard things get, I never give up. Don't you give up either, everybody. I'm Gen the Gachi. On the morning of August 6, 1945, Hiroshima's moment of destiny was drawing nearer and nearer. As Gen approached the gate of his school, his classmate's mother called out to him. He stopped and looked up. There he saw the Enola Gay shining in the clear blue sky. Gen said, "Look, ma'am, it's a B-29. The lady said, "Isn't that strange? It's flying up there just as it pleases. And the air raid sirens didn't even go off." They're looking up at the B-29, puzzled at the way it suddenly appeared. Many people in Hiroshima saw the Enola Gay at the same moment, but everyone thought it was just a spy plane. Then, a few seconds later, flash! Boom! A sudden flash of light threw the city of Hiroshima into utter darkness. It was 8:15 a.m. when the atomic bomb exploded with a white-hot light 1,800 feet over the center of the city. Instantly expanding, the fireball melted people, trees, and buildings, burning them all up in a split second. Roar! From the huge red fireball, a mushroom-shaped cloud rose high into the sky with a roar like a howling demon. A terrific blast rushed along the ground at more than 760 feet per second. The shock wave blew away people, houses, buildings, and trains, smashing everything to pieces. Gen screamed, "Oh!" The lady screamed, "Eek!" Gen and the lady were blown off their feet like leaves from a tree. Roar! Shush! An eerie sound, as if heaven and earth were cracking apart, filled the air of Hiroshima. Gen blacked out. He didn't know for how long. When he came to and opened his eyes, the air was filled with smoke and everything was as dark as night. The wall of his school had fallen on top of him, but that was what saved his life. What on earth had happened? Gen says. What's going on? Digging himself out of a rubble of bricks, tiles, stones and chunks of wood, Gen managed to pull out from under the wall. Gen is astonished at the terrible sight before his eyes. Gasp! Gen gave an involuntary scream as he stood up on the street. His classmate's mother lay by the streetcar tracks, scorched to death. Gen says, "Eeks, she's dead! Somebody, help!" Gen desperately cried out for help, but everything was silent. Hiroshima had become a city of death. Gen says, "Papa, Mama, Shinji, help, help." Gen ran for his life toward his house. Ghost-like people came struggling and groaning toward him. Some were stuck all over with broken glass, with windows shattered by the blast. Others had strips of skin drooping from their arms, melted by the heat waves. Gen says, "Gasp! What's going on? These people all look like monsters. Wow! I'm scared." A horse on fire galloped down the street. Gen saw people trying to wash the blood off their bodies and pull the broken glass out. He saw people covered with burns, thirstily drinking water. He saw people crawling across the ground with their intestines hanging out. He saw dead people stuck on the branches of trees where they had been blown by the blast. Gen says, "This is hell. I must be in hell." Gen kept running like a madman. "Papa, Mama, Shinji, Eiko." When Gen got to his house, he found his mother trying to lift the heavy wooden roof at the entrance. His father, his sister Eiko, and his little brother Shinji were trapped under the beams. The whole house had collapsed. When the bomb hit, his mother had been on the porch upstairs, where the roof had protected her from the heat waves. Even though the blast had blown her to the ground, she miraculously survived without any injuries. The mother said, "Gen, over here. Thank heavens, you are safe." "I need your help, Gen, to pull them out." Gen says, "Okay, Mama. Shinji, Papa, Eiko, hold on. We'll get you out." Gen and his mother tugged at the beams together, desperately trying to save them, but the heavy roof wouldn't move at all. Gen says, "Heave ho, heave ho." The mother says, "Mmm, mmm." Gen says, "It won't budge." The mother says, "Oh no, what shall we do?" Shinji says, "Get me out of here, Gen. It hurts, it hurts." Gen says, "Come on, move your damned roof." Gen says, "Mama, the fire's coming this way." The mother says, "Jump down your fire. Get back, go away." Gen threw stones at the fire, but the flames only grew larger and started to lick at Gen's house. The mother says, Somebody, help! Please help me rescue my family." The fire blazed away, roaring at it to drown out his mother's voice. Shinji said, "It's hot, Gen. It's hot. Get me out of here." Gen said, "I can't, Shinji. I can't. This roof won't. move. This wolf won't move at all. Shinji said, Mama, it hurts. The mother said, Eiko, Shinji, dear. It was then that Gen heard his father's voice, deep and muffled, as if coming from underground. The father said, Run, Kimie, or you'll be caught in the flames and die. The mother said, No, never. I won't leave you and Shinji and Eiko. I'll die here with you. The father said, You fool, Kimie. You've got to live and give birth to a baby. You have Gen, Akira, and Koji to look after. Take Gen with you and run. Go with your mama, Gen. Hurry, or you'll die. Gen says, No, I don't want to leave all of you. The father said, You fool, listen to me. You've got to survive and take care of your mother. The flame roared and Gen's house burned. Amid the flames, Gen could hear Shinji and Eiko's cries and his father's groans. There was nothing Gen and his mother could do. Then, suddenly, the mother said, Hey, my husband's burning. Eiko's burning. Shinji's burning. Ha. Burning. Everybody's burning. Gen says, Mama, have you gone crazy? Get hold of yourself, Mama. The neighbor, Mr. Park, came. Park said, Mrs. Nakaoka, Gen, what are you doing here? You'll be burned to death. Gen said, Mr. Park, Papa, Eiko and Shinji are trapped under the house. Mama's gone crazy. Park says, Pull yourself together, Mom. Gen, I know how hard this is, but you have to leave. Hurry. With Mr. Park carrying Gen's mother on his back, they ran from the flames. As the fire overwhelmed Gen's house, he could hear his family's voices. Shinji screamed, Gen, Mama, it's hot. Eiko screamed, Mama. The father said, Take care of your mother, Gen. Gen says, Wow, damn it, damn the war. Gen covered his ears with his hands and ran after Mr. Park and his mother. Mr. Park, Gen, and his mother ran on till they reached the outskirts of Hiroshima. Behind them, flames rose from the city with a hideous roar. Park says, I think you'll be safe here. Take good care of your mother, Gen. I'm going to go look for my family. Gen says, Thank you, Mr. Park. People were struggling along in a ghostly procession toward the suburbs. Scorched corpses lay where they had fallen on the fields and roads. Gen was stunned by the sight of all the people who seemed to have turned into ghosts and monsters. But then, the mother said, Ooh, liver pains. Oh. Gen says, Mama, what's wrong? Pull yourself together. The mother says, The baby. I'm having the baby. Gen says, What? The baby? What should I do? The mother says, Oh, we won't be able to find a doctor in all this confusion. Gen, you have to deliver the baby. Gen says, Me? I can't do that. The mother said, Yes, you can, Gen. Go get some bedding, a bucket, a tub, and lots of cloth. Find a pair of scissors too. Gen says, What are the scissors for? The mother said, To cut the umbilical cord. Gen said, Help! Mama's having a baby. His mind got blank from all the terrible things that were happening one after another. Gen dashed out into the blazing streets. This is the end of chapter 3. The baby was born and became a hope for people around them. However, several months later, she passed away. I sincerely hope that such tragedy of war will be eradicated from the earth as soon as possible. This concludes my presentation of Barefoot Game. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Naoko, and we are with you on that message that we hope that that message of hope for those who are survivors of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. And also, again, this story always very heartwarming. It always put tears on my eye. And thank you so much for sharing these stories with us today. This story with us today. This very important story to always remember. So, for this Barefoot Gen, thank you so much. I think the reason we are here now and doing all the peace activities is to proactively promote peace and not have another survivor of war and weapons of destruction. So thank you, Japan team, for all your contributions to this peace wave. And we're going next to our next peace wave. Let us welcome our peace wavers. Our next peace wave from South Korea. So Ayung, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, this is Ayung Moon. I'm with Peace Momo, Peace Education Specialized Organization based in Korea. And I'm very glad to be here with all of you for the Peace Wave 2023. Today, we are going to share 3 different stories from South Korea. So at first, we will begin with Gangjong Peace Movement story. And this story will be introduced by Kaya. I will introduce her soon. And also the lecture regarding the current situation in the Northeast Asia region, the lecture by Seo Jae-jung, which was provided by PSPD. And the third story is going to be the Peace Momo's lecture, also on the Northeast Asian regional situation. So I think I have calculated the time, needed time, and I think it's a little bit over than the given time to South Korea. So with the last video, we will gradually fading out from our session. So I'd like to start with our Gangjong Peace Movement. So I'd like to invite Kaya to introduce the first presentation. Kaya, please.
Thank you, Ayung, for the introduction. I will try to be quick to introduce the video we prepared from the Gangjong Peace Movement. Gangjong is a village located on Jeju Island, which is off the south coast of South Korea. And there is an ongoing protest movement here that is against a base that is used by the United States, but it's a Korean base. And it is a base where there has been a long struggle to prevent the construction and a continuing struggle after the construction was completed to protest the ways that the base is used in supporting and furthering the tensions between the United States and China. So this video is from our daily human chain, which we have every day from Monday to Saturday each week at noon. And this video focuses on a couple different issues during our human chain. But one thing is the way that ships from the base have been sent to international war exercises. such as the current war exercise Pacific Vanguard, which is happening in Guam from July 1 to 12. And then one of the ships that was sent here from the Jeju Naval Base will also be sent to the Talisman Sabre exercise in Australia. So we want to stand in solidarity with the people who are opposing militarization in Guam and Australia as well. And remember also that this is the 70th anniversary coming up of the Korean War armistice, and add our voice to the calls for a true peace treaty to end the Korean War. So I think that's all the introduction the video should need. I hope you enjoy a small piece of our daily human chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaya. Then let's start the video.
인간띠는 평화의 섬 제주의 폭력적으로 세워진 군사기지를 반대하고 제주가 비무장 평화의 섬 되기를 바라는 사람들이 그 마음을 노래와 춤으로 나누는 자리입니다. 그래서 오늘 특별히 우리 그 피스웨이브와 어울리는 다양한 깃발이나 피켓이나 우리 영상에서 잘 보이게 나오면 좋을 것 같습니다. 걱정 마라 안심해라 우리가 너희를 지켜주마. 세계자연 7대 경관 손성취하였으니 부지사의 집권으로 세군기지를 철회하라.
거짓말과 폭력으로 세운 기지 몰아내 주민 동의하지 못한 가짜 기지 몰아내 제주 바닥 망가뜨린 해군기지 싫어요 아름다운 평화의 섬 함께 만들어가요 해군기지 몰아내 전쟁기지 폐쇄해 평화의 섬 제주에서 해군기지 몰아내
해군기지 반대다. 군사기지 반대다. 다음 달 7월 11일, 12일에 그 나토 북대서양 조약기구라고 미국의 군사 동맹입니다. 유럽을 중심으로 한 그 연례 회의가 열려요. 유럽에서. 그런데 한국의 윤석열 대통령도 유럽 국가도 아닌데 작년에 이어서 또 참가합니다. 그 말은 뭐냐면 아시아 태평양의 국가들 한국, 일본, 호주, 뉴질랜드가 유럽 국가도 아닌데 미국 주도의 패권을 위해서 그 나토 회의에 참석을 하고 근데 우리가 이렇게 쓸데없이 미국 주도의 회의와 전쟁훈련과 무기 구매에 휘말릴 동안 파탄이 나는 것은 우리의 민생이고 그리고 파괴가 되는 것은 우리의 기후입니다. 그것뿐만이 아니죠. 이 제주 해군기지는 미국의 전초기지로서 다국적 해상 전쟁 훈련이 있을 때마다 군함이 출항하는 곳입니다. 얼마 전에도 7월 1일부터 12일 있을 미국, 호주, 일본 그리고 우리가 한국이 참여하는 4개국 전쟁훈련 퍼시픽 뱅가드에 참가하기 위해서 또 문무대항함이 출항했어요. 그런데 이것은 평화의 섬 제주를 파괴시키고 태평양의 평화를 파괴시키기 때문에 우리가 오늘 여기서 원하는 사람은 누구나 관련 구호들을 외쳐볼 수 있도록 하겠습니다.
We want peace, not war.
We want peace, not war. Not worship, but friendship. Not worship, but friendship. 우리는 침해 중단하라!
No to militarization!
No to militarization!
Yes to cooperation!
Yes to cooperation!
이어서 우리가 맨날 하는 춤을 추려고 합니다.
우리 모두 절박에 굴하지 않고 시련 속에 자신을 배우쳐가며 마침내 어려운 세상 툭툭거리고 바위처럼
모두 함께 발을 들어라 감정의 평화를 위해 다 같이 소리 높여 반대 반대 무조건 전쟁 기지 세우면 우리의 평화는 없어 모두 함께 발을 들어라 감정의 평화를 위해 다 같이 소리 높여 반대 반대 다 같이 소리 높여 반대 반대
No to militarization!
No to militarization!
Yes to cooperation!
Yes to cooperation! 해군기지 폐쇄하라! 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 전쟁 연습 중단하라! 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 Stop Pacific Vanguard! Stop Pacific Vanguard! 핵무기 금지 조약 가입하라! 핵무기 금지 조약 가입하라! 군축으로 기후정의! 군축으로 기후정의! 우리가 전쟁을 끝내자! 우리가 전쟁을 끝내자! No war, yes peace! No war, yes peace! War!
Sorry, the ending credit was accidentally cut off. Let me play the rest of the video so that we can see the names who contributed to this video. Oh, it's restarting. From here. Okay. Thank you, Kaya, for the beautiful video and the beautiful, meaningful messages. Thank you. So now we are going to share the lecture video by Seo Jae-jung. This is a part of the End the Korean War campaign and Global Peace Action for Korean Peninsula. So please let me share the screen again.
This important meeting. Thank you all for joining this important meeting, and it's great to see some of the familiar faces and some new faces to discuss what's going on in the region and what can be done to improve the situation. Let me first start off by saying that although I have been following the security situation on the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia since the 1980s, the current situation is the worst, the most dangerous that I have ever seen. And I am gravely worried, and I use today's opportunity mainly to share my concerns and reasons for my concerns. And I hope to get away from the meeting with some hopes from you for future prospects for peace. So let me share a PowerPoint that I have prepared. And my talk will be basically about the reasons why I think the current situation is the most dangerous that I have ever seen since the 1980s. And the main reason is that the major state parties to the Korean War are pursuing first strike doctrines and capabilities. And that they are doing so because they have been engaged in the Korean War for over 70 years and have been engaged in an escalating arms race. And so we need to think about ways to de-escalate and find room for diplomacy and peace. So what do I mean by the rise of first strike doctrines? Well, take a look at what North Korea has been doing for the past year or two. North Korea has been developing nuclear and missile capabilities at least since the 1990s. But until last year, its nuclear doctrine was no first use. It will use its nuclear weapons in retaliation. But in September 2022, North Korean People's Assembly adopted a law that they call On Nuclear Forces Policy that lays out conditions under which they will use nuclear weapons. And the conditions include not just the conditions of a nuclear attack on North Korea, but non-nuclear attacks. And so if you look at condition number 2, non-nuclear attack against national leadership, or if non-nuclear attack is deemed imminent, then North Korea can use nuclear weapons. So this is a clear first nuclear strike doctrine. And if you can go down the list when you have time, but North Koreans are basically saying in this law that they will use nuclear weapons in a first strike if they deem it necessary. So now the question is whether the North Koreans have the capability to actually pull it off. And North Korea had been developing deterrence capability, mainly in the form of ICBM and nuclear warheads that could be delivered by ICBM, and that they certainly have ICBM capabilities, but they are now developing solid fuel engines and possibly multiple warhead rockets that could be useful for a first strike against the US continent. Not only that, they are also developing intermediate range missiles that could be used in a first strike against targets in Japan, Guam, or Alaska. And finally, North Koreans are developing short-range missiles that could deliver tactical nuclear warheads against targets anywhere in South Korea. So not only do North Koreans have the strategic nuclear warheads, but they also have delivery capabilities that could deliver the nuclear warheads to the continental US, targets in the Pacific, and South Korea. They have been demonstrating their capabilities in various tests in recent years. And so they could now launch their missiles from, and not only anywhere on the land, but also under the sea or under the lake. And they also have solid fuels that could be used to launch missiles on warning. And so these are very useful capabilities to use for first strike. And they also have developed warheads that could maneuver to evade missile defense systems. And they could also be very useful in a first strike. And so North Korea has a first strike doctrine and first strike capabilities, and they are continuing to enhance their first strike capabilities. So the question is, why are they doing this? And a lot of the answers can be found in the second bullet point in this slide. And if you look under capabilities, you see the military spending by South Korea and North Korea, very conveniently provided by the US State Department. And according to its report, South Korea spent $44 billion on its military, whereas North Korea spent $4.3 billion, 1/10 of South Korea's military spending. Furthermore, $4.3 billion represents 26.4% of GDP, and therefore North Korea's GDP would be approximately four times its military spending, and 4.3 plus times 4 is about $17 billion. And so if you compare $17 billion with South Korea's defense spending, you can see that it's not even half of South Korea's military spending. In other words, even if North Korea allocates all of its economic activities to the military, it cannot possibly imagine to match South Korea's military capability. And therefore, they are turning to asymmetric capabilities like missiles and nuclear capabilities. And so the structural asymmetry in the security condition is creating an incentive for North Korea to develop missiles and nuclear warheads. And furthermore, South Korea is developing capabilities that would neutralize North Korean missiles and nuclear missiles. And furthermore, especially the Yoon government is developing doctrines and capabilities that would be used for what they call decapacitation capabilities for taking out the leadership of North Korea. And so South Korea is pursuing capabilities that would take out North Korea's missile capabilities before they could be launched. That's part of three-axis system. And South Korea is also developing capabilities that would knock out missiles in flight. That's part of the three-axis system. And the last component, the last X of the three-axis system is the decapitation capabilities. And as if these were not enough, South Korean government and think tanks are talking about what they call plus alpha, that actually implies a regime change. And so South Korean government is pursuing the capabilities for a regime change. Now, quickly moving on to the US. The US has been implementing its first strike doctrines since November 30, 1950. I could pinpoint the date because President Truman kindly came out, made a public announcement on that date that he would use atom bombs, as they were called back then, if necessary. And the US governments have been maintaining that posture ever since, under the name of the extended deterrence. And now the extended deterrence has an added component of what they call tailored deterrence. And so the deterrence strategy is tailored to the conditions in the Korean Peninsula. And in the case of North Korea, the purpose of the tailored deterrence is specifically the end of that regime, as a nuclear posture review of 22 explicitly stated. So the US has all these capabilities that are designed to bring about the end of that regime. Now, Japan. The previous Abe government has adopted security laws that made the peace constitution an empty vessel. And so Japan now has defense forces that could be used in an international arena. And Japan certainly has the capabilities. But the Kishida government is using this opportunity further to really develop the capability to strike the enemy first before Japan could be hit by the enemy. And so this capability used to be called the enemy-based strike capability under the Abe administration, but now it's given a more generic name, counter-strike capability. But the essence is the same. It's the ability for Japan to strike the enemy before the enemy strikes Japan. And to pursue this capability, Japan is increasing its military spending, and it has an ambitious plan to really increase the spending by 2027. And one big chunk of the spending will be spent on purchasing 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the US. And so Japan will be the second country that would be able to import the Tomahawk missiles from the US. And as you probably are aware, Tomahawk cruise missiles were the weapons of choice when the US military initiated attacks on Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and other places since the 1990s. These are very effective weapons for a first strike. And Kishida government is portraying this as a defensive capability, but because the cruise missile is so slow, it has to be launched way before, for example, North Korea launches its ballistic missile. And so Japan will have to fire first before North Korea even touches the button. So Japan has adopted counter-strike capability as a strategic goal, and it's actually pursuing the capability to implement this. And recently, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary, Masuno, came out and to North Korea's military as a serious and imminent threat. And if you recall, the North law stated that if it deems that imminent attack is imminent, that it could use its nuclear weapons. And here, the Japanese official is already designating North Korea as an imminent threat, implying that the Japanese government could exercise its counter-strike capability. So all of these state parties to the war are pursuing first strike doctrines and capabilities in Northeast Asia, and that's really making the situation volatile. And so the question is why? And the answer is that they are all fighting the Korean War ever since 1950. And the war has never ended. And these countries have been just continuing to engage in preparation for a war, preparation for a victory. And their preparations are raising the level of insecurity to ever higher level. And so now we are really reaching a dangerous stage. And that can be seen in the military exercises this March. And so the US and South Korean militaries studied the Freedom Shield exercise involving US bombers flying in from the continental US all the way to the Korean Peninsula and simulating dropping bombs, including atomic bombs. And so this was a simulated military exercise of first strike. And the North Koreans simulating their first strike doctrines here, this time, for the first time in history. And so before the military exercise was studied, North Korea studied their military exercise. And so 6 short-range ballistic missiles were test-fired on March 9th, before the South Korean US alliance studied its exercise. And before the B-1B bombers were flowing from the US continent, North Korea fired an ICBM, Hwasong-17. Not into the US this time. It was a test fire, but nevertheless, the North Koreans tested an ICBM that could have been used against the US continent, target in the US. So the North Koreans were clearly showing that they have a first strike doctrine and that they are testing these doctrines with these exercises, just as the US and South Korean alliance was testing their first strike doctrines in these exercises. And the second phase of this exercise was the Sangyeong exercise. And this was amphibious, this is still ongoing. And so this is an amphibious landing exercise. And the Marines are not going to land in Tokyo Bay. They are practicing a landing exercise for somewhere in North Korea. So this is another form of attack exercise. And North Korea countered this with their first strike doctrines. So just before the Sangyeong exercise began, North Korean military test fired short-range missile KN-23 and other missiles. And the aircraft carrier Nimitz just came to Korea as part of this exercise. And just before this carrier entered the Korean waters, North Koreans pulled off another round of exercises that would be effective against aircraft carriers. So Hail-1, that was first shown in this exercise, is an underwater cruise missile that could maneuver underwater miles and miles for over 59 hours and detonate just before port. And so North Koreans were clearly demonstrating that they now have this capability and that they would use it before US carriers and other warships enter Korea. Just as the US and South Korea were practicing their first strike doctrines. And I also note that on March 22nd and 23rd, UK also participated in this exercise. And so this is the first time the UK forces participated in the binational exercise. But this is another interesting development to watch. And this is the exercises in action. And I'm not going to go over the details, but move on to the next, just to highlight that the Korean War is also a European war, especially since we have some European friends participating in this webinar. I want to remind all of you that European states participated in the active phase of the war from 1950 and 1953. And they remain involved in the war after 1953 as members of the UNC headquarters. And they also remain involved in the war as members of the UNC. We are that's based in Japan. And this is particularly important to keep it in mind because UNC WEAR has 7 bases that it could use in Japan with just a notification to the Japanese government. They do not have to get an approval from the Japanese government to use these bases. And it's not just the US, but also European and other governments that are part of this agreement. And the 7 bases are in this map. And interestingly, France and UK, as well as Australia, have been using this agreement first to monitor UN sanctions against North Korea. And so these countries sent their ships to the region and make a port call in one of these bases in Japan, and then move on to the area around the peninsula. But on their way home, they participate in exercises with the US, so-called freedom of navigation operations, and they also participate in multilateral exercises like Jeanne d'Arc 21 and Pacific Vanguard, with the big power in the Asia continent in mind and in sight. So this is precisely the mechanism by which a conflict in Korea could bring in not only Japan and the US, but also European countries. And NATO has actually been active in getting involved in the security affairs of the Asia Pacific. And I adopted a strategic concept last year that designated China as a challenge to NATO's interest, security, and values. So, given all of this, I am deeply worried that any accident or mistake can really trigger a major catastrophic conflict, just like a tiny mistake triggered World War I. And so I compare the current situation to just the days before World War I. But I think there still is a hope. And one important point is North Korea. Obviously, Kim Jong-un made this statement that, quote, "we can never give up the nuclear weapons." And so he maintains this aggressive posture. But in the same speech, he made an important statement that's missed by a lot of observers around the world. And the important, and I think that this was perhaps the message that he wanted to convey to the outside world, is this, and I quote, "If our nuclear policy is to be changed now, the world has to be changed, and so should the political the military conditions on the Korean Peninsula changes, then North Korea's nuclear policies could also change." Of course, his words would have to be tested, but I think he's at least leaving the window of diplomacy open, and he's at least leaving the possibility of diplomacy open that I think needs to be explored. And we now have more than 3-4 decades of experiences with the North Korean diplomacy. And diplomacy has not produced a peace or denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But we certainly know that when there's no diplomacy, when there's no negotiation, things got pretty nasty. But when there was a diplomacy, when there was a engagement, North Koreans reciprocated. And so during the period of or periods of negotiations, North Koreans did not engage in the military provocations or missile or nuclear test. And I think that record needs to be kept in mind as we think about what we can do. And finally, I think it's important that the U.S. House of Representatives has a bill called the Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act, introduced by, I guess, about 20 representatives. And the same bill did not survive last Congress, but it was introduced again this year. And so there is at least some interest in the House of Representatives for bringing the war to an end and starting a peace negotiation. And I think that gives us some hope. And of course, there are many active civil society organizations that have been campaigning for the end of the war. And so I think there still is hope, and I think there is really a room for the diplomacy to turn things around. Thank you.
Okay, I hope that you have gotten lots of information regarding the situation going here by the Korean Peninsula through the Japanese presentation. So this is gonna be the last presentation from the South Korean side. Thank you, Frank, for your message. I'm going to play a video, the lecture of Francis Dae-hoon Lee. He is a director of Peace Momo Trans Education for Peace Institute. He is going to share his view on the Northeast Asian regional peace and security situation. So let us start.
Hello, I'm Francis Dae-hoon Lee. Welcome to the 2020 Peace Momo Early Winter College. And today my topic is to prevent fatal clashes in Northeast Asia. I'm going to divide my talk into 4 parts. First, recent development in Northeast Asia. Second, regional global nature of the arms race we are facing in the region. And the third, I'm going to argue for the need of agenda resetting for the peace building and for peace movement, etc., from Korea focus to regional conflict prevention. From Korea focus to regional conflict prevention. And number 4, I'm going to propose several things for preventive actions for non-governmental and governmental agencies as well. Let me move on. I want to sketch out briefly what has happened, especially in 2022. I will start from South Korea. We had a new government, Yoon government, from May. This was a very dramatic conservative turn in politics from previous 5-year democratic governments. Now, this new government was very keen in promoting the so-called 3-axis military strategy towards North Korea. I think I have to describe the 3 axes, what they are. The first one, for the first time in South Korean history, this government claimed that it has ability and willingness to do first strike against the DPRK. And second one, it promised to develop South Korea's own aerial missile defense system, along with the US one. And the third one is also very scary and dangerous, which is, in case of a threat, in case of an attack as well, South Korea will go for a massive, punitive retaliation on the part of DPRK. This is called 3-axis, and along with it, Yoon government very strongly emphasized that it will, by the extended deterrence strategy of the US, it will localize extended deterrence. It will pursue stronger alliance with the US and Japan. This means that nuclear and non-nuclear attack system will be installed in the region based on US, Japan, ROK trilateral alliance. This has been postponed and postponed by previous democratic governments, but it's not being postponed anymore. And let me move then to ROK-US alliance. As you know, this is one of the strongest military alliances of the world, most expensive and most extensively exercised alliance. Now this year, unlike the previous 5 years, the joint exercise rose in the amount, in the expense, and in terms of antagonistic aggressive capability. The name was Ulji Freedom Shield exercise between US and ROK, and then there was Japan as well later. It's called the Trilateral Ballistic Missile Defense Exercise. Then they added one more, Sea Joint Exercise between 2 countries, ROK, US, and they added another this week, which is Air Joint Exercise. And these exercises include, let me highlight, these exercises include the so-called decapitation operation drill, which mobilizes the top special forces from the US directly into the Korean Peninsula. And the purpose of this operation is to go into the enemy terrain and remove the leadership of the enemy, in this case, the DPRK. They opened this battle, a very dangerous battle this year, and it was a very large nuclear and non-nuclear weapons included, and Japan was in the full partnership. Now, in South Korea and in the US media, when DPRK fires a missile or artillery fires for their drills, all the media coverage will go for provocation, unprecedented provocation by DPRK. But how do you describe the ROK-US military exercises and ROK-Japan-US exercises, which mobilizes the most deadliest aircraft of the world and the most deadliest nuclear submarines and hundreds of fighter and bomber planes from the US, from Korea and Japan, and by the concept of the extended deterrence, these drills by US and Korea and Japan include nuclear and non-nuclear weapons system in full coordination. And I think we also have to note what has changed in Japan from this year. Japan has adopted a 5-year defense budget plan, which plans to double the current Japanese military budget, double by next year. It means every year for 5 years, Japan will increase its military budget by $61 billion per year, which will be about 4 times larger than South Korean military budget. This is unheard of, record-breaking military expense hike by Japan. And what do they plan to do? They plan to invest on high-tech missile technology, ballistic missiles, and artificial intelligence-based weapons system, and submarines, air force, and naval forces in full offensive capability. And the written objective of this plan by Japan is Japanese capability to destroy the enemy bases. What does it mean? No more defense force. It's a full-scale offensive force that Japan is trying to transform its forces in the next 5 years. And as DPRK, we saw that they tested a record highest number of ballistic missiles, short-range missiles, and artillery drills this year. They tested more than 19 ballistic missiles this year. But when did it start? Did they behave this way during the past 5 years until last year? No, they did not. They came to negotiation tables. They signed up disarmament treaties. They signed up like 50% peace treaty with the leadership of South Korea and the US until the Hanoi 2019, until the summit between US and DPRK failed in 2019 in Hanoi. So let me take a note that DPRK didn't pursue its armament program in the past 5 years, just as they did this year. This year, it is also a dramatic change by DPRK. When peace negotiations fail, because due to hardliners like John Bolton from the US, then countries like DPRK will go back to its old armament course. So now, on top of that, when the South Korea and US were focusing on the largest military drills ever in the sea near Korean Peninsula, then DPRK, Pyongyang declares, this was on September 8th, Pyongyang declares that it has legal right to the first strike by nuclear weapons in case they are threatened, not just physically attacked. If the leadership of DPRK finds that the country is under serious threat, then it declared it has the right to do the first strike of nuclear weapons. What does it mean? By 8th of September, DPRK declared itself as a nuclear weapon state. What I'm trying to say is that we have a fundamentally new situation in the region. This is no more a conflict between North Korea and South Korea. This is no more a seesaw game, diplomatic seesaw game, look at me, listen to me, let's come to the table, no, I don't want, kind of negotiation between DPRK and the US. This is a regional conflict, and the arms race is in the region, not with a few countries. China is a big part. Russia is also a big part in Northeast Asia. So therefore, from these observations, I'd like to add that whenever we discuss the situations in Northeast Asia, we had too much obsession and too much focus on DPRK. Let me repeat. The situation in the region has fundamentally changed this year. We are facing a new situation. Just raise a simple question. Do you think the mobilization of the deadly military forces from the US, Japan, and South Korea together with so much budget in it and so much troops mobilization in it, is it just targeting DPRK? Or is it a response, militarized response in the region by this side against that side, which includes, of course, China, with the development of crisis over Taiwan Strait, and with the current war going on in Ukraine? I think the most rational response to this question is, no, the new developments this year was a regional response, was not targeting a particular country. So when these tensions are described in the framework of provocation by DPRK, South Korea's defensive responses to DPRK provocation, I think we are missing the point. And a little bit of knowledge from peace studies, especially conflict studies, will give us light on this matter. Because just the basics of conflict is never unilateral. Conflict is created and escalated and sometimes resolved mutually, not by one agency, not by unilateral. But this dominant discourse of DPRK provocation is one-way explanation. Then the cause and the process and the result lies on one actor. Now we have to shift this from our understanding of conflict studies. By definition, conflict is a situation of engagement by several parties, several actors, who had this unfortunate perception that the other party is incompatible with my party and my party is incompatible with the other party. So conflict is a situation when two or more parties develop and act according to this perception of incompatibility. Then what is the basics of conflict transformation? We try to change the perception. We try to change the action by changing the idea of incompatibility into compatibility. And it has to be mutual. So let me highlight the best way of understanding what happens in the region of Northeast Asia this year is that we lacked the proper understanding of conflict, which has been regional and which has been multi-actor oriented. By understanding conflict in that way, I think we can go beyond the Korea focus, as if all the problems lie in the Korean peninsula and China, Japan, Russia, US had nothing to do with Korean issues. No, the conflict started from the ending point of the Second World War, when by the global politics, the country was divided into two, the region was divided into two blocks. And this two-block game or two-block power competition still continues. Let me restart from the basic definitions of conflict. Conflict is a mutual action. Whether it goes up or down, it has to be mutual. And from this idea, we have developed in the conflict and peace studies 3 ways of engaging in a conflict. One is peacemaking, which is to stop an ongoing conflict. The second is peacekeeping, just like the situation until last year in Korea, to prevent resumption of fighting again. And now the third part is very important, especially today, which is peace building. Peace building is an active and planned intervention to prevent recurrence of the conflict. How? By addressing the root causes of the violence and changing the society and the state so that they can work for peaceful conflict resolution in a continuous and in a comprehensive and in preventive processes. So therefore, we can take this idea of peace building to apply in the Northeast Asia region. When you say there is a problem, the problem is caused by 1 or 2 factors. But when you say there is a conflict, conflict is a problem caused by several parties involved. Then if you want to change the problem, the nature of the problem, that is to change the conflict, then we have to plan to engage with several parties, not just DPRK alone. So this is a totally different paradigm, a totally different perspective. When you say we have a Korea issue or Korea problem or Korea peace is important, then there's a natural tendency, global tendency to focus on the problems of DPRK. But if we go back to the basics of our understanding of conflict and to understand this problem as a regional conflict with several parties involved, then our engagement should be multilateral, multidimensional, and multi-level, and multi-actoral. And that's the way forward for conflict transformation. So by definition, our conflict transformation should be building relationship among many parties and analyzing conflict of many parties and address root causes which are probably historical and political and global power relational. And then we need to plan for dialogue, talking, meeting people of multi-actors. Then we have to set up a governance system that should be also regional, not governance system targeting one single country, but a regional government system. And usually in the security sector, they call it regional security arrangement, which does not exist in Northeast Asia. So we should work for that. And who is we? We are the people. So therefore, the last part of conflict transformation is that we go for building peace capacity of people of different countries together, not just one single country. So I'd like to argue from these basic principles of conflict and peace studies that let diplomacy do the work for the prevention, for civic empowerment, and for multi-party arrangement for.
Hey, as I informed you earlier, since the video is longer than the time given to the South Korean team, so I just faded the video out, and I'd like to share where you can watch the full story of Francis Dae-Hoon Lee's presentation. So let me share the link in the chat box. And as Jae Jung-seo mentioned already, and also Kaya and Gangjong Peace Activist Group mentioned, and Francis also illustrated, every problem is connected, but sometimes it's very easy to just speak about the society that certain group of people are involved with. So whenever we mention about Korean Peninsula issues, actually it's not only Korean Peninsula issues, it is all connected. It's global issue, it's a regional issue. So I'm thinking that how can we really refresh our eyes and not taking the way to pick certain countries or certain states as a problematic states. And we can really work together to build peace for the globe. Thank you for your time and joining South Korean session. We will wrapping up here. We'll be wrapping up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayung and the Korea group for your contribution on this peace wave. We all enjoyed the video. It makes it's very insightful to know what's happening in Korea as well. So with that, that's the end of our Peace Wave Part 7 for Japan and South Korea. Thank you so much to the Japan and Korea team for making this Peace Wave possible in that region. So we will also now move or pass our next wave to the Part 9, to the Philippines and to the Southeast Asian region. So we will just stop the recording and the streaming and to prepare for the next Peace Wave session. So stay tuned and be with us.